Hey, welcome back. Today is episode 50, and an anniversary years. That means it's the golden anniversary. It's kind of a big deal, and it's a big deal for me because the one thing I always tell my clients is always celebrate the small things, not just the big things. Sometimes we just don't realize the small things are pretty monumental too, as ironic as that may sound. So celebrate the small things and the big things. And to be honest, for me, at first I thought, well, that's kind of cool, but it kind of is a big thing. 50 episodes deep into a podcast that I had never dreamed I would do. It wasn't even anything that was on the horizon of what I wanted to do in my life. But yet here I am. And I have gotten wonderful feedback from the people out there in podcast land telling me how much they love the insight and info I share. And that makes me happy because the point of doing this is if I could just help one person have a better day or give some insight that they just really needed, well, this is why I'm doing it. And thank you for listening. And by the way, by the time this airs, it is going to be Valentine's. So happy Valentine's Day. I know some of you might be like, Valentine's is not really my favorite. And I've been there too. But really, Valentine's is just about appreciating, in my heart, it's about appreciating those people around you that you love. It doesn't always have to be a romantic interest. So if that's getting you down, how about you twist it and you turn it into something that is good and you can just really just show the people that mean the most to you, friends and family, whomever they may be, how much they mean to you. Just take the time for that. And that should be something we do more often. But for Valentine's, it's a good reminder. Maybe it stirs some things up. I need to do this more often. So, guys, getting back into today's episode. All right. I even though it is part two of like how influential, like you always win when you stop the naysaying. This is part two of two because last week, episode 49, we talked about this, but I had such good feedback from people and it created for me to think about a lot of things, like when we have naysayers in our life. And then I had to reflect on my own life. When have I allowed it to stop me from pursuing a goal? And when has it spurred me on to say, you know what? Like, I'm going to show you that kind of thing. I've been on both sides of it. And so there's no judgment. And the people that wrote into me, whether it be people texting me, I had friends text me. I even had friends, like I had a friend call and be like, we started talking about it. And she's the one that kind of got me thinking, you know what, I'm going to call this episode, even though like, I guess the subtitle I'm going to call it is Influential Naysayers. And I know you might be thinking influential naysayers, like those two don't go together. And I mean, good influential naysayers, not the kind that drag us down, not the kind that, actually do what they were hoping to do. So such good feedback from people. Thank you to all of you who shared. I shared this on Instagram and on Facebook in the stories. I asked your opinions and you guys shared. I had several people, like only one person said that they've never let a naysayer stop them. Everybody else said that they had. When I aired this last week, when I did a live update, I think it was live. I don't know. It was on stories. No, it wasn't live. But at that point, everybody had voted that yes, that they've allowed a naysayer to cast doubt into them, to stop them from doing whatever it was they wanted to do. And some people, it was just naysaying their entire life, growing up with negative people. Some people, it was like, I shared this dream or goal, and this person just poked holes all through it. And then I did have one person come towards the end of the week and vote at the very tail end of that little poll that said yes, or that said no. They have never allowed somebody to stop them in their tracks. So if that person out there listening was like, wait a second, because I came back and reported and said, everybody said that it stopped them, that person hadn't voted yet. So if you're that person and you're like, wait a second, but I didn't vote that way. I'm just putting it out there. That is kind of how it worked. So let's get into this influential naysayers. Okay, if you've never had an influential naysayer in your life, well, I'm going to tell you this. The chances are that you just didn't know that the naysayers that have been in your life, the people who have spoken negativity or been very pessimistic about a goal or dream you had, or maybe just they're just pessimistic. They're just that way to be around them. Like nothing is good. It's not necessarily like you're sharing a goal or dream with them. They just bring you down, the Debbie Downer kind of thing, right? but you just didn't know, how could I turn that person into a good influence on my life? So you have had these people in your life. You just didn't know how they could be influential in a good way. So let's look back at this. Let's see if you can figure this out. For those of you that have been like, yeah, I've had somebody that really spoke a lot of what bad stuff into me, but I allowed it to, turn into something good. That's great. That's great. So just hang in there with me as I go through this, because those of you that say, no, that's never happened to me, I want you to look back at a time or times when someone was negative about something in your life. I want you to think about the hurt that it caused, regardless if it made you want to work harder at it or if it kept you from moving forward on a dream. If you were like, nope, it's propelled me forward, or no, I'm actually taking 10 steps back on this goal or dream or whatever it is that you wanted to do. Regardless, either way, there was hurt. They said something, it hurt you. You took that hurt in, and from there, you either allowed it to move you forward and say, no, I'm going to prove them wrong, or I'm going to take some steps back. And maybe you never step forward after that on that particular item, whatever it is. So there was hurt. Now, if you acted from a place of hurt, if you allowed that anger to fuel the reason why you worked harder, what I'm about to say might not set very well. I will probably step on a few toes. And I'm used to that as a life coach, because life coaches aren't there to tell you everything you want to hear. Life coaches tell you what you need to hear in order to get to a better place of healing and restoration. That is why it's called therapy on steroids. However, sometimes, and I've been life coach myself, at the end of that, you're just kind of like, oh, it could be tough to take, but it's something we needed to hear. So I might be stepping on a few toes here. But if you allow that anger to fuel the reason why you worked harder, I'm going to tell you, anger isn't what needs to fuel any of us in any aspect of our life. If you find yourself in that mode right now, if you're in the middle of it and you're like, man, someone told me I couldn't do this, I would never amount to it, and so you're in the middle of it, I want you to just hear me out, take a deep breath, and hear what I have to say. Because anger or bitterness, they are emotions that, well, we need to feel. God gave us these emotions, the anger to feel. Bitterness is kind of an effect of anger. Anger is the cause. Going back to school, cause and effect. But anger is an emotion that we need to feel. If we also feel frustration, that's something we need to feel about somebody or something that they said. All right. We need to feel it. I'm not going to ever tell you that that's bad. Those are bad. Like I say, they're negative emotions because they have a negative effect on the body. However, God gave us the ability to feel them. We need to feel them. We absolutely need to feel it. Feel the hurt, feel the anger. All right. Go there. However, this is where a lot of us start. This is where the confusion sets in as to a negative emotion must mean it's bad emotion. That must mean that it's not, we have to stay away from bad things. The problem is you can't stay away from these emotions. They're just going to happen. Even if you're really good at just, okay, I was angry for a hot minute, but now I'm good and I'm done with it. You still felt it. It's still there and it's had its effect on your body, regardless if you want to believe that or not. However, if we allow negative emotions to take the wheel behind our reason, it is slowly going to tear us apart. Slowly, bit by bit. You're going to act and behave in ways, no matter how good you are at biting your tongue, saying, you know what, I've got a handle on this. I don't let my temper get the best of me. No matter what, it still has an effect on you. And this isn't good for us. Anger and hurt can definitely slow down our progress in this certain area. It might be slowing down your progress. You might have continued on despite the naysayers, but you willingly, yes, you willingly carried around the hurt within you. And that anger, that frustration, or whatever might be the strongest emotion that you have, it will do damage if you leave it to its own devices. Bitterness can prevail. Remember me saying that anger is the cause and bitterness is the effect. Bitterness can prevail, and you might achieve that goal. You might achieve that dream, or you might have walked out of a childhood that was full of hurt and you're like, you know what, I'm doing good. People said that I would never come out of that house. being successful in anything. Even the people in that house told me that, whatever it might be. But now you're harboring bitterness and frustration towards the person or people that said those things or whatever they might have done. Despite despite achieving all the goals, anger will still be present, and it has dug deep roots, friend, deep. So how do you spin this into something positive? Well, one thing you can do is you write down all the reasons of why, of what they said, what it caused you to move faster towards your goal. Why did it cause you to move faster to your goal? Write down all your reasons. Now, I want you to also think or write down all the reasons of why you wanted to achieve that goal. Not when it shifted into, I wanted to achieve that goal because I was going to prove them wrong because it was all about them. I want you to go back to that moment when you first thought of that dream or goal or to better your life, whatever it might be. And you wanted to do it for you, not to prove somebody else wrong, not to show them, like, I'm just going to show them that, you can knock me down, but I will get back up. How about instead of showing them, how about showing yourself? I want you to go back to that time. I want you to think of that. When you still wanted to achieve that goal, go after that dream and think of that plan, whatever it might have been, no matter how big or small. And I want you to notice the difference. Maybe you had someone tell you your entire childhood that you weren't good enough, you weren't smart enough, or pretty enough, or skinny enough, or you just weren't enough, whatever that might be. And that's real. And that hurts, especially if your entire childhood when you look back on it and you felt like nobody believed in you, you didn't have one person that told you you could go after that or do that, there is a lot of hurt and there's a lot of years of hurt and anger and frustration. And I dare say you probably have some bitterness bumping around in that heart of yours. But listen to me. I know those words hurt time and time again, but regardless of the power of those negative words, there was a spark of something in you. No matter how big or how small that spark was, they didn't believe it. They didn't believe it. Something in you refused to believe it and wanted to believe that you were enough or you could do the quote unquote hard thing, whatever that was, that you could do it. Something in you just refused to believe all the negative words that were cast your way. And you wanted to do it because you wanted to do it for yourself, not because you wanted to do it to prove them wrong. And you might need to think hard and be like, I don't know. I look back and the whole time it was to prove somebody else wrong. I know if you go back and you dig deep enough, you're going to find that part of you that's did it for you, that started this journey because you wanted to do it for you. And maybe somehow, some way, the enemy spoke his lies into you by using the words or actions of other people, and you allowed it to turn into something that you needed to do to prove them wrong. Psalms 27:3 says, though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident. David's writing this. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory when you're listening to this, things that are happening around him. Even though an army besieges me, my heart will not fear. And even though wars breaks out against me, even then I will be confident. Trust in the face of uncertainty, it comes from God, not man. I'm going to say that again. Trust in the face of uncertainty comes from God, not man. And if that verse is ever a good example of how that worked, right there. David is trusting that God has him. He has his back. He has faith. That's what faith is when you still believe it's going to be fine, that God will provide despite what everybody else might say is uncertain, despite all the fears. So trust in the face of uncertainty comes from God, not man. And safety within yourself, knowing that you can move forward in such a way that blesses others as well as yourself, comes from God, not man. God allows you to provide ways and gives us these incredible tools and ways and processes for us to create safety within ourselves to understand it is safe in here, that we will create our own internal safety, that we are okay because God has allowed us to be okay. He has restored us, He has healed us. And when you respond from a spirit of fear, which gives fruit to anger, bitterness, resentment, defensiveness, this will hinder your abilities and talents, no matter how far you've come. Maybe you've achieved the goal. Maybe you've achieved the dream. Maybe you got out of the neighborhood, got out of the house, whatever it might be. But I'm telling you this, if you are still living in that spirit of fear, that anger, the frustration, the bitterness, the defensiveness, whatever it might be, is still rummaging around inside you because that spirit of fear has never been dealt with. You never looked it in the eye and realized that this is not how God wants us to walk this earth and live this life, because we can't bless others, not as deeply, not as good as we could if we come from a spirit of love. Your naysayers, when you hand the hurt and pain over to God, when you wake up to the reality of how these emotions and how strong they are, because they were left unchecked, how these emotions have caused you to act. When you hand over all of this with full awareness of how you've been thinking and acting, coming from that spirit of fear, God will allow for the restoration of your heart. He will heal. He will begin to make your pace towards that goal or dream or letting go of all those years of hurt move that much faster. And you might be thinking, well, I did a lot on my own. I've accomplished a lot on my own. And that's right. I'm sure you could show me a lot of evidence. But what I'm saying is, even if you feel like I've reached this place, but yet you're walking around with anger and frustration and all those things, you haven't quite reached it yet. Because you can be in the, what people would say, the outside world, now that's a good place to be. But if inside you're harboring all these negative feelings and emotions because of what somebody did or said years ago, and you did this just basically to prove them wrong, it's time to turn it into, you know what? I no longer carry that resentment. I no longer carry that anger, because now you're going to be in a better place and you're going to actually be able to enjoy where you're at and see the blessings and then be able to bless the mess out of other people. And it takes time to do this, right? So when you think about that, what all the things that the naysayers have done, and you hand over that hurt and that pain to others, and He restores and He begins to heal. When you move from a spirit of love versus fear, forgiveness, generosity, vulnerability, joy, your progress is going to pick up momentum. If you're there, like I said, if you're there already, you will finally achieve the peace that you were looking for, that you probably feel like, I got there and I'm still upset and angry, no matter how many years ago that was. Your naysayers can be a good influence on you when you decide to let go of the hurt and anger. And it may take some time to do this. And once you do, the wisdom and the clarity that only God can provide in these situations, despite all the immense amount of hurt and pain and anger, all the things over all the years, friend, just let me speak this into you, that the wisdom and clarity that God provides will show you that you can do, that you can let go of all this despite the hardships. Despite all that, you can let it mold you into a stronger and a more enlightened version of yourself, the wisest version of yourself. And it all comes from a good place. It comes from a spirit of love versus fear, because it comes from God. When you hand it over and you say, I know this has not been working well for me, even though I have a lot of evidence to say, hey, I did all this, I succeeded. Or maybe you're in the middle of it. Maybe you're ready to start. Maybe you like the gun just went off. You're about to start this race set before you, but you're doing it from a place of fear. I'm going to prove them wrong. Or you're about to. You're just walking up to the line, the mark of where you're supposed to take off running from, right? And you're there. And I'm going to tell you, now is the time to hand it over, the hurt, the bitterness, the anger, to God, and tell Him, you know what? This has not been serving me, and it will continue to not service me. Yes, I feel hurt. I feel angry about what they said or did. But when you hand it over, God says, I can take that and I can heal you. And you will go so much further if you allow me to be the one that is the catalyst behind this. So, friends, take the time to see how you can allow wisdom and strength to prevail from the doubt that a naysayer cast into your heart, whether it be from yesterday or 25 years ago. Look at your thoughts, look at your feelings, look at your actions. Are they serving you, or are they holding you back? Are they hindering you from the very best version of yourself? Not the perfect version. I'm always going to say that, but the very best version of yourself. So, all the naysaying, all the things that were spoken into you, how can you turn what that person said into something good? It might take some time. And if it does, that's okay. And you might find yourself forgiving this person for what they said. And you would need to eventually, because when you forgive someone, it's not letting them off the hook, it is letting you off the hook, because you're no longer carrying around the anger, the bitterness, the frustration, all the things that come from that spirit of fear. So do this today, friends. And I wanted to tell you guys, I am wrapping up my first round of Unleashed, the group coaching program that I've been thinking about for 2 years now. I started it a few weeks ago. My first round was 4 weeks. I'm about to start another round in a few weeks. I'm getting some of the stuff behind the scenes done and fixed and all the things that I just wanted to tweak a little bit. But I'm about to start another round, and I'm going to be announcing that soon and having all the stuff where you can sign up and get on board, all the women out there that want to be part of a group coaching program that provides restoration of the heart, that allows you to let go of past hurt, fear, regret, and allows you to build a foundation where you can move forward. No matter your background, no matter what side of town you live on, no matter all the things in your life, all of us have times of our life where we feel stuck. We are not moving forward, whether you needed something in your professional life or personal life, or both, because they both bleed into each other. This is an incredible program. Just the 4 weeks that I've been meeting with these women. This week is going to be the 4th week. So we've met 3 times. I have already seen a shift in the women that I work with, and it takes some time. Some of these women are coming in with some hurt, and they were tired of the hurt bringing them down, but they're doing the work. And that is, I mean, I did the same thing when I reached out to my group coach and I saw all the wisdom and everything. And then here I am 50 episodes later, 50 episodes later, and a life coach myself. Guys, you never know. And I'm telling you, this stuff changes lives, and it also changes the lives of those around you. So, Unleashed is coming up. Round 2 is coming up. It's going to be a little bit longer than 4 weeks, but I'm going to put some info out there soon. So be on the lookout for it. Guys, if you like this episode, please share it. And then don't be afraid to rate it. You can go to Spotify or Apple. But if you find me on Apple and you rate it, it allows, and give me a 5-star rating. It allows other people to find me faster, because there are so many podcasts out there. And I want this to be able to help as many people as possible. So thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for celebrating episode 50, the golden episode. It's a good one. And see you next week. Until next time, friends.